Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Apurvis Progeny V3 in collaboration with Bestech. This is actually the first time that I have handled the Progeny model. It's definitely an interesting one, and it is definitely one that I've seen all over Instagram. Thank you so much to Abby_normal-1969 on Instagram. This person loaned this knife to me for review. It will go back to this person when I am done. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. I think there might still be a few variants of this knife still available. I will link Adam Purvis's website right down in the description so you guys can check it out if you want to. I did confirm with Mr. Purvis that Bestech is the OEM for this knife. So interesting. I have a lot to say. Let's go ahead and get into it. First of all, some specs. Overall length coming in at about 7 point. I really thought it was going to be 8 inches. It's about 7.75 inches overall, and blade length is coming in at about 3.35. Cutting edge is coming in at about 3 1/8. It does feel like a full 8-inch knife, though. How about some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and up against the Ontario Rat Model 2? I've got the grid lines up, but I don't have these in the right place. You can see here that this knife is definitely a little bit larger than the Rat 1, but nowhere near the size of the Rat 2. How about up against the Demco AD20.5? There we go. We are actually pretty darn similar. The Progeny V3 is actually a little bit longer. How about up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3? I don't know why that didn't come all the way out. I think it's closer in size. Yeah, definitely closer in size to the Para 3. And then last but not least, let's go ahead and put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, and the Benchmade Bug Out. Much more of a bug out sized knife in terms of overall length. How is the action on this knife? It has a really, well, you know, when I say heavy detent, I mean when we're talking about you also considering the length and mass of the blade and the shape of the flipper tab. The detent feels pretty darn heavy. I'll let you guys look at it here. If you can get leverage on the flipper tab, it'll absolutely flip. I find it a little bit difficult to fire it with the thumb studs. And I find that the flipper tab is, you know, once you kind of adapt to it and do the light switch thing, it works just fine. It's a little bit pokey. And I'm either wanting the flipper tab, like just, it's fine. The action's fine. And it's very smooth inside of the pivot. I mean, it's one that I think, you know, it just takes a little bit of encouragement to fall down, but it's very smooth and very consistent. I imagine it'll get fall shut over time. I find myself wanting either a different shape of flipper tab or no flipper tab at all and a lighter detent. We'll talk more about that, but the action is good. Let's do carry profile up against the Spyderco Para 3. You can see here it's almost the same, maybe a little tiny bit thicker. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. You can see here this guy is actually about the same overall length as the Para 3, nowhere near the same length as the PM2, and nowhere near as tall. It actually shouldn't be too cumbersome in the pocket. Let's take a look at the inside. Materials on this guy, we're looking at some really nice raindrop carbon fiber. That looks really great, the way that he did the inlay here. But the inside reveals that there's no internal milling, not that it needs it. We are looking at M390 for the blade steel. No surprise there, and titanium, of course, for the frame. Weight is coming in at, move the entire background with that one. Weight is coming in at 3.49 ounces. Actually, the balance is pretty good on this guy. The ratios are pretty good, and the balance is right there right behind the pivot. So it really feels great. And it shouldn't be too cumbersome in the pocket. If you wear really light pant material, you wear really tight pants, it might bother you a little bit. For most people, it'll be just fine. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'll get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. The pivot is a T8, and I'm not even going to check the body screws because they are definitely T6. Not really very many. In fact, this still qualifies for what I consider minimal hardware. It's also a pretty simple design overall. So should be pretty easy to take apart. No issues there. Just make sure you have quality tools and a place to put your hardware, and you should be good to go. Let's go ahead and measure blade stock thickness here real quick. Blade stock thickness on the Progeny, come on now, zero out. Progeny V3 is coming in at, my guess is 125. No, I'm wrong. 145, really? That just does not look like it's going to be 145 thousandths. Doesn't it look to be about the same as the Ritter Hogue? The Ritter Hogue should come in at 125 or so. Yeah, 123. So really, this is coming in. So I checked to make sure that my calipers are still accurate. 145 thousandths. Okay, thicker than I expect. It does have a, you know, if you're thinking, wow, that sounds thick, it's got a hollow grind, a pretty aggressive hollow grind. So it does thin out to a very, actually exceptionally thin edge. I think that's it for specs. Let's go ahead and move into the meat and potatoes here. This is a good looking knife. It's got kind of a, you know, it's like a modified sheep's foot. I don't really want to go into too much in the way of particulars when I'm, you know, categorizing that blade shape. But that's what it looks like to me. Really nice handle profile in relationship to the blade profile. The whole knife really flows together really well. There are a few different options. If you're looking at this and going, that thing is, you know, blending in so perfectly with his background that it's hard to tell where the knife is unless he's got his hands up. They do have, if you're not into the super shadow look, they have a really nice looking standard micarta and sort of tumbled titanium with a, I believe it's a satin, no, it's a, maybe you have satin and tumbled as an option. But those are the sort of the basic ones. They have, I think, OD green, black, and perhaps one other color. Those look excellent as well. This guy is $10 more for the all black, like the DLC, and it looks good too. And I really, really like the carbon fiber. Truthfully, I just like the positioning of the inlay. It looks nice, and it is perfectly sort of outlined by not, you know, it's laid in a ways enough that you can tell where, you know, the boundary is of the titanium, and it just looks really good. Bestech did a pretty good job here. There's a couple of areas that look like maybe they have more gaps on this side, and it's probably just, I don't know, like it's perfect on this side. Absolutely. And then you can see, whoop, sorry. Let's make sure the camera's not shaking. Right here, this was perfect. There's a little bit right here that's weird and a little bit right here that's weird. It kind of surprises me for Bestech that we have that much variation. Perhaps it is being highlighted by the fact that we are looking at a grayish black in the carbon fiber and a more matte black with the titanium. It may be a little bit less noticeable in the micarta and stonewash versions. I don't really know. It's not terrible. Closing my eyes and running my finger over it doesn't really feel that crazy. I can tell over here, but not over here. Not bad. Definitely, you know, not the best I've seen in this price range, but also not the worst that I have seen. Your mileage may vary, right? You may have one of these and the inlays are absolutely perfect, but that's the first thing I noticed on this guy. I do like how it is positioned, though. I like how it looks. You have to look pretty close. Like if I get it all the way back here, you have to look pretty close to find those gaps. In fact, they almost disappear from this angle. Overall fit and finish is very good. That was really the only the only flaw that I found with, you know, the execution of everything. The quality of the materials is very good. The way that they have machined the titanium is nice. The carbon fiber is beautiful and not, you know, that cheap, shiny looking stuff. It just look. I really like raindrop carbon fiber. I think it looks great. I like how he signs the pivot. That's a nice touch. I like that there's a 3D milled clip. That's very good. Overall, a very stylish knife. The thumb studs, I think, are in an okay spot. But you know, the detent just feels really heavy and really stiff for, you know, the shape, and that maybe, you know, when the detent is heavier, you know, it might work better if the thumb studs are positioned a little bit higher. I'm sure that's going to throw the design off. But, you know, the more I play with this, truthfully, the more I find myself wishing that the detent was just a little bit lighter and we just didn't have a flipper tab at all. Would make this area, you know, a lot more usable. I mean, it would just feel a lot more comfortable, choked up. There would be absolutely nothing in the cutting path, which you can see here. Actually, the thumb stud is not, it's not too bad, but it's in the cutting path. And also, it would allow you to lay this blade flat in a way that, let me get the box top, as we are right now, where if you were, you know, to lay this down, that flipper tab prevents the blade from contacting all the way to the back here next to the sharpening choil. Why is that important? It's not really that important, but for anybody who uses their knife periodically in food prep, right, which is not the most common thing to use your pocket knife. Most of the time you're in the kitchen, you use a kitchen knife, but if you're camping, maybe. I think that would have been kind of nice. The blade profile, that was the first thing that I tried. I looked at, well, I'm sorry, it was the handle profile. I looked at this and thought, can I get that blade to lay flat? No, it's okay. It doesn't need to. It's not like this was exclusively made as a food prep knife and it is not filling that role and is therefore a bad design. No, but I'm saying for me, right, I'm, so trying to be as objective as possible here, but I just find myself wishing, I wish the thumb studs, did I say this wrong? I think I did. I was saying, like, let's remove the flipper tab, and then I was saying if you did that, then the thumb studs wouldn't be in the cutting path. No, that obviously wouldn't make sense. Still, though, I prefer that the thumb studs remain there, are slightly in the cutting path, and there would be no flipper tab. Then I could make use of this position here, choking up and getting closer behind the edge for some of those cuts that might get close to the thumb stud anyway. Being able to, just have a little bit more. It's very good in this position here. This is fine. This is plenty comfortable. But I just, that would be my preference there. Just considering how heavy the detent is, I think it would be better if it was lighter and I could get at that. As it is, it's actually, I'm going to try to do the reverse flick on this guy. Yeah, you can get it. And a knife doesn't need to be able to be reverse flicked in order to be a good design, but I always check with stuff like that, just for your information type of thing, if you like to do that with your knives. But all of this is fine, right? It makes me like, why didn't they make it different for me, right? We all do that. Anyways, moving on to the blade, we have a flat that carries out 75-80% the length of the blade. We have a nice swedge up here. All edges are nicely knocked down. The only sharp edge is, of course, the cutting edge. This gets beautifully thin down here. I think we can probably see, even though it's all black, you can see how it tapers down to a really fine tip. That's great for things like draw cuts, right? Slicing tasks, things like that. Really good EDC blade, and the DLC looks nice and even on this guy. Actually, truthfully, I don't know if it's PVD, DLC, or if it's Cerakote. It doesn't feel like Cerakote. It feels more PVD than anything else, but I don't know. Sometimes it's hard for me to identify that, right? But with it being M390, it certainly does not need to be coated for corrosion resistance. I mean, I think people choose this finish just because they want the all black look, which is fine. I personally probably would have gone with a black micarta inlay, the tumbled finish, and the tumbled blade. I think that looks really good, but this also looks very good. Very easy to disengage the lock bar. It's not cut, I don't believe. Oh, well, actually it is cut a little bit lower. There's a lip here that's flush with this side. But above that, you can see that's scalloped out. The peak of this side is cut higher than this side, and that allows you to kind of disengage from the side rather than digging your thumb down into it, which is uncomfortable and kind of pinchy. So that's nice. It's really just a slight irritation with the shape of the flipper tab. The detent could remain this heavy and be just fine, and I feel like it would be a little bit more comfortable with a different shape of flipper tab. Now that could throw the design off, right? I'm sure there's a reason that he wanted the lower profile flipper tab, but that's just kind of what I'm feeling. Still though, if you find yourself flipping this thing on the couch over and over and over again over the course of 30 minutes or so, your index finger will get a little bit sore. Same thing with using the thumb stud. You're gonna miss it sometimes. It's gonna be kind of weird to find the angle. It's actually wanting to go I'm finding that I have to position my hand this way and it wants to go more that way. I don't really like deploying it with the thumb stud the way that it is, right? I want the detent to be a little bit lighter. The back spacer is, very long. The majority of the body, is the length of, what's the best way to say that? The length of the back spacer is about 70%, 75% or so the length of the body. And that's fine. I imagine that's maybe for balance, I don't know, or to keep you from touching the blade, because the blade probably, it's pretty close. So that's probably the main function there. Either way, it looks nice. I kind of like how it transitions right here. This looks really good. Pretty simple otherwise. There is no lanyard hole, and frankly, I don't care. The pocket clip is strange in that it doesn't follow any particular line. In fact, it almost looks like it goes the wrong way. It works, and it's a nice clip, and there's a nice little ramp here. It's nicely knocked down all the way around and doesn't create any major hot spots. Should be pretty easy to get it over the seam of your pants, whether you've got the carbon fiber version or you've got the micarta version, because they smooth up the micarta. It just looks like it should have followed this line. Like, it goes this way and the back of the knife is going this way. And that's okay. It doesn't look bad. It still looks like it's appropriate for the knife. It's just it's weird that it looks kind of backwards to me, but still okay. We do have a steel lock bar insert that doubles as the over travel stop. We are locking up at, you can see they're probably 30% or so, which is fine. No blade play, up, down, left, to right, no lock stick. We have a stop pin located in the usual position, and we do have some shouldering on the tang of the blade, so that's nice. No pivot lash whatsoever. That's very good. Like I said, in here, very smooth, very consistent, and very, very robust detent with perfect centering. So the base price of this knife comes in at about $289. This one is $299. And honestly, considering everything we've got here, I think that's pretty fair. I don't have an issue with that. There's just this knife is going to come down to preference. I think it's really good the way that it is. I think it's designed really well. It's definitely a mega slicer, and it's going to, fill the role as functional EDC knife, as well as really, really cool, sort of scratch the itch enthusiast knife. I would have changed some things, but that doesn't mean that most people won't enjoy it. I still feel like the detent is a little bit heavy, but it's okay. Generally speaking, this is a recommendable knife and a really good design. So it'll go in my recommended knives playlist. Thanks again to the person who loaned it to me for review. That's gonna be pretty much it today. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do of course have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like. So check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.